Welcome, everyone, to the Information's TITV. My name is Akash Pasricha. It is Thursday, October 16th. We have got a great show planned for you today. We have got Microsoft's Chief Product Officer of AI at work coming on the show momentarily to talk about the current state of play in their AI business. You do not want to miss that conversation. We're also talking about how one company is using video games to train AI models, and separately about how Anthropic is planning to go hunting for some more acquisitions. And finally, we've got a big story publishing today about how xAI plans to outfit the big data centers it is planning with enough AI chips, which of course are very expensive to come by. It's going to be a great show, so let's get right on into our first guest. It's a very interesting time for Microsoft in the AI race. The company, in many ways, had a big head start with its early investment in OpenAI, but now it's up against some of the same challenges that many other enterprise companies are facing, like convincing businesses that their products can actually demonstrate real ROI. I want to bring on someone who is working on that challenge every day. Aparna Chennapragada is the Chief Product Officer at Microsoft of AI at Work. Aparna, it's great to have you on the show. Welcome to TITV.
Thank you, Akash. It's a slow news week, month and a year and a decade.
Always. Okay, well, given how slow things are, let's talk about all the exciting things that are happening in the world of AI. You know, one of the things that we've been talking about this week on the show is Dreamforce, and Mark Benioff came out saying, hey, AI, it might take a little longer than we thought in terms of integrating it into enterprises. And that was a bit of a change of tune from last year, but it kind of connects to this theme overall that people are sort of coming to grips with the fact that, hey, AI is taking a while, uptake is a little slower than we may have thought. Are you seeing that in your business with the customers that you're working with?
First of all, for perspective, I think this is the fastest diffusion of technology that ever happened, let alone consumer on the enterprise side, right? So I've been through the internet shift. I was early at an internet content delivery system at Akamai, and obviously through mobile and the web growth and cloud, and here we are at AI. The compression of diffusion is what used to take decades is taking years. And of course, you're saying, why isn't it happening in months? But I think that's one thing for perspective. Second thing I'd say is we are actually seeing quite a bit of adoption in our customers. 90% of our Fortune 500 customers are actually using a Copilot Studio, Copilot building agents. We have more than 100 million customers across consumer and commercial for Copilot. And then we're building a lot of agents that are focused at work. So what I would say is, look, you can't do the wild, wild west thing. You have to build. For us, the way I think about it is, I tell my teams we are operating like a three-legged stool, right? So one leg of the stool is, of course, the best intelligence. And that momentum is incredible. Even as we speak, I'm sure there's a new model dropping, right? So that's one, the advanced intelligence. But the second one is actually figuring out how people work, meet them where they are. And that's where the way we are looking at it is, of course, integrate in the tools that people actually already use. Hundreds and millions of people already use Word, Excel. We launched the agent mode in Excel. And then the third leg of the stool is trust and compliance and security and all that. You can't compromise that.
I want to talk about the trust element, because one thing that I've been interested in with your products is, as you seek to integrate more AI into products like Excel and the Microsoft 365 Office suite broadly, I mean, it takes a lot of trust for people to trust AI with producing sensitive documents or complicated spreadsheets. I mean, these are big financial models. How do you actually accelerate the adoption and actually embed trust into customers when a lot of the time I asked the AI to do it, it was fine, but I still have a lot of work to do to sort of make it what I need to do in the first place?
And it's also not a point in time frozen question, Akash. So if you look at the first wave of AI, it was mostly these instruction following models, right? It's basically question answering. It was that's why, no surprise, chatbots were the first wave of AI products. And we did that too, where you can ask a question about a document. But that only goes so far. It's an improvement in productivity, but it's not in, order of magnitude more. The second wave that we started really zeroing in on in the earlier part of the year is going beyond answering to reasoning, right? Once you actually have reasoning models, then you say, no, actually, give me the entire sales briefing that I need to go into this prospective customer. So we launched an agent called Researcher, and it's mind-blowingly good at connecting the dots between your meetings, your emails, and the world information, right? That's not about saving time anymore. That's about, giving you superpowers. Like I couldn't do it as a human, and now you have an agent that can do that. Now the third wave that's coming is, okay, you have answering, you have reasoning, you have doing, right? And that's what you're pointing out, which is how do you and the trust levels are increasing as you
Yeah,
go
but
up
it
that.
takes a lot of. I mean, you're handing over control of work essentially to this agent. I can only anticipate there's a huge cultural shift that has to happen in the way people do work, and so that's what I wonder how you think about accelerating that. Is it just educating people? Are there products that they are asking for that you still have yet to develop? I mean, how do you think about accelerating
So there's three things we're doing, right? So first one is saying, look, what is the objective way that we can measure how good the products are? So
Okay.
like we have all these benchmarks externally, right? Like about how good AI is at competitive coding. Turns out, newsflash, most people are not doing competitive coding when they come to work. I don't know, Akash, maybe you are. I'm not doing, man. Uh,
I am not doing competitive coding now.
Right. So what we said is, okay, let's come up with workbench, which is what are the set of tasks? Like we have a spreadsheet bench, we have a PowerPoint bench, we have a benchmark for, how meetings and effective communication happens. And so what we are saying is taking a very hard-nosed look and saying, how well are the models and the products doing on that front? So let's be objective and get some data on that. Right. The second thing we are doing is, of course, keeping the human in the center. So I'll give you one example. We launched a project agent in our Teams product, right? So if you're in a channel, you can add this project agent. You can ask it questions. You can take notes. It follows up stuff, note taker, all sorts of stuff. But in that case, we are kind of trying to say, hey, the human is in the center in the loop. You're not trying to kind of like build an agent that runs away and does a whole bunch of things without the human approving.
Right. Let me ask you about some of the technology under the hood. So we've reported about how Microsoft is now leaning more on Anthropic for the underlying models for several of its Copilot products. Have you seen customers react better to those particular models as they've been used?
I think the way to think about this is, people in the industry are constantly talking about, is the model the product? Is it app first versus model first? And we've seen this movie before. The stance and the posture we're taking is it's value first, right? For the customers, like in what situations? First of all, giving them choice in terms of the models that are accessible to them. That's the first step. But then what we are trying to figure out is, hey, in this case, when we say we want to build this agent that is almost like the CEO's chief of staff for everyone, right? Like this researcher agent I talked about, the goal is to help you think and act like a CEO. Models are a means to that, right? And so we're looking at everything left to right and saying, hey, what are some of the technology bits that are useful for giving the best report as I walk into this meeting, right? What are the tools that are best for code generation and visualization and so on? So I think that's the approach we're taking, the customer and the value first.
What about pricing? You have right now the pricing model is on a license basis, a per seat basis. You also have consumption based pricing elsewhere in the suite of products. Which of those are you seeing customers respond better to right now?
It's an and. I mean, if you think about like the Azure AI platform model or the Copilot Studio model, we're seeing incredible usage of like people building these agents. Now, the agents themselves, they're not going to be like, what we talk internally see is it is a power law, right? There are a few things that a lot of people use, but the beauty of it is there's agents that like people have built that 3 people use, right? And so consumption makes a ton of sense there. And for the main M365 Office suite and like the Copilot usage there, it is where you are meeting users where they are in their workflows. So of course, like a per user model makes sense for us. So it's an and.
Right. And last question for you, as you seek to build your product suite out, what is it that customers are asking for most right now that you are trying to deliver on? What's coming next?
I would say two things. One is this idea of, look, individual productivity is really important. And we're really racing to figure out, hey, what are the set of agents that come to work for you, right? Like if you had a team of virtual agents, today you get a badge and a PC when you join a company.
Yeah.
What are these five, like if an employee is an agent boss, what are the five digital workers that should come to help work? That's number one. I would say the second one is more around multiplayer. Like individual productivity is one thing, but how do we make teams and organizations? A lot of the CIOs and a lot of the business folks, as well as kind of like actually developers, are looking at. I'm not in a, this is not a single player sport. I'm working, coordinating, a whole bunch of effort goes into it. Can AI make that go away? Or
How do you do that? I mean, is this more ways of like sharing docs? Like, what does this look like on the ground?
Actually, a great example of that is the agents that we are launching in now that can attend meetings, that can
Okay.
be part of the group channels with you. And if you look at like people working across time zones, incredible amount of time goes into working harder and keeping track of things and connecting the dots, etc. Forget 996, we have 24/7 with AI, right? And so we should put that to work. That's the perfect example for me of AI that actually amplifies and not just automates, right?
Right. Great. Well, Aparna, thank you so much for coming on the show. It is certainly an interesting time for the company, and we are closely watching to see what you and your team are working on. That is Aparna Chennapragada, the Chief Product Officer of AI at Work here on TITV.
Thanks.
We've talked a lot on this show about Elon Musk and xAI's grand data center ambitions. And one of the most important questions has been how xAI is going to fund the construction of these data centers and also buy all the chips that they need for it. I want to bring on Miles Kruppa, our AI and finance reporter, and Theo, Wayt, our Elon Musk reporter, to tell us more about a story that they are publishing today that sheds some light on how exactly xAI is going to address that challenge. Theo and Miles, welcome back to the show. It's great to have you.
Thanks for having us.
Let's talk the wonderful business of data centers, of Colossus. Theo, we're going back to the city of Memphis, which I know is a city that is very, very close for you. Remind us about the scale of the data center that xAI is trying to build in Memphis, and then talk a little bit about how the company is looking to outfit this data center with chips and actually finance all those investments.
So xAI already built one data center in Memphis called Colossus that's been up and running for over a year now. They have the second one called Colossus 2 that they're still finishing up and filling up and powering, that they say is going to be more than 1 gigawatt of power with about 550,000 NVIDIA chips in it, which would make it the first data center of that scale in the world. It's really unprecedented in size. There are lots of other companies that have announced projects that would be that big, but it seems like xAI will probably be the first to actually finish building one if they can get the money to do so. Buying that many chips obviously costs billions of dollars, and xAI needs a ton of money. So to buy those chips, xAI is doing a deal with Valor, which is an investment firm that has very close ties to Elon, and is raising a ton of equity and debt for a SPV, which is essentially a subsidiary company that will buy NVIDIA chips and lease them to xAI.
Miles, let's go over to you. Talk to me about this SPV. You were talking to me before the show. I mean, SPVs are not rare. They are pretty common in many cases in Silicon Valley. But what is unique about this deal and the way in which it's structured?
Yeah, that's right. We've seen other companies like Meta turn to SPVs to raise money for data centers and effectively get these costs off their balance sheet. And we've also seen debt backed by NVIDIA GPUs in the past. What's a bit different here is that the firm that's raising the money for this is Valor, an investment firm. It's not a CoreWeave, like a cloud provider. So effectively, this is going to turn Valor, an investment firm, as Theo said, that has very close ties to Elon Musk, turn them into a cloud provider for Elon Musk's AI company. And that's sort of an interesting position for Valor to be in. They're also an investor in xAI. They're basically asking investors to make a bet that XAI is going to be able to make its lease payments
Right.
on these chips, and then that the chips will be valuable years down the road.
So this is turning a venture fund into kind of like a cloud provider player. Is that the idea?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, it will be leasing the chips to XAI, much like CoreWeave leases chips
Yeah.
to OpenAI. So, however, CoreWeave has an operating history as a cloud provider, and Valor does not.
Valor just woke up and said, "Hey, you know what? This cloud business sounds pretty good. Why don't we take a shot at it?" Is this common in Silicon Valley? Right? I mean, have we seen other firms do this? We've talked about, we've talked about venture funds taking on more roles in the technology ecosystem than just providing venture funding. Is this happening with other firms too, or is this unique?
Yeah, well, this structure is a bit different than others that have been done in the past. But yes, it is basically part of a bigger trend in which, given the funding costs of the AI boom, the amount of money it takes to purchase hundreds of thousands of NVIDIA chips, you're seeing companies trying to shift those costs off their balance sheet, out of their CapEx totals, into other areas. So as to sort of lower their overall cost of funding, be able to raise debt more easily, and just kind of keep this whole thing going, turning to other partners to basically finance a lot of these really, really expensive purchases.
Theo, I want to come back to you as it relates to Elon Musk running XAI. I'm wondering to what extent this feels like a deal that only Elon Musk could have sort of orchestrated, or is it something that people say, this is actually something that we could see more of? I guess what I'm getting at is this an Elon Musk deal, or is this an AI data center deal that we could see more of?
So I think it's an Elon Musk deal in the sense that he's, calling on a very close ally to kind of arrange this whole thing, essentially. But, I think, and Miles pointed this out while we were reporting this story, there are parallels to this kind of structure. There's a Meta data center in Louisiana that's under construction, or is, I think, maybe starting construction soon. That is also being financed by an SPV. But that deal, there's only $3 billion in equity and $26 billion in debt, which essentially means investors see it as less of a risk because that component is so high. So, it's not like XAI can just get, unlimited money or anything. They are this kind of unproven player that doesn't have a lot of revenue, doesn't have a core business that's throwing off money the way Meta does. So there is certainly, a premium for the amount of risk here that XAI does have to pay.
And Miles, what about the power component to these data centers? That is obviously something else that companies have to figure out how they're going to pay for. How are they planning to finance all of that investment?
Yeah, that's right. So XAI is using power resources that are actually located across the state line in Mississippi. And it's a joint venture with a power company where XAI is actually the minority owner. And so that power company they're working with owns a slight majority of those power generating assets tied to natural gas. And what they've done is they've gone out and raised a $550 million loan to go purchase more power assets. So, in that aspect as well, XAI doesn't quite own this really critical component of the Colossus 2 data center.
And the fact that they don't own any of these assets, Miles, and I'll close with this, does this pose any kind of a risk to the fundamental business model that XAI is trying to develop here? Is there a way that this could sort of, end up coming to hurt them in the long run? It's obviously a great way to get the assets in the short term when you don't have to put up all the cash. But I'm just thinking sort of 5-10 years down the line here. What do you think the implications are?
Yeah, well, I guess one consequence is that if XAI were in a position where it needed to sell some of these assets, it wouldn't really immediately be able to do that because it wouldn't have control.
Right.
XAI does, as far as we understand, have a right to purchase the chips at the end of the term. That's kind of an interesting part of the deal. So it could, after it's finished its lease payments, end up buying these chips. But as we know with NVIDIA chips, they depreciate over time, and
there's new ones coming out too.
It's not clear how much they'll actually be worth. So
right, and there's new ones coming out always, and it's a very competitive space, and I can certainly see Elon saying, "Look, we got to get the new ones." I mean, the old ones were the old ones. Well, look, it's a fast-moving story, and I appreciate both of you coming on. Theo covers all things Elon Musk, and Miles covers all things AI and finance here at Information. Thank you both for sharing more of those details with us. And with that, let's get to our next guest. Deal-making, M&A, and acqui-hires have been one of the biggest elements of the AI boom as many companies try to find ways to grow. And this week, The Information published an inside look at Anthropic's deal-making strategy and how that stands to change in the near future. I want to bring on Valida Pau, our deals reporter, to talk about what she found and what she's hearing. Valida, welcome to TITV. It's great to have you.
Oh, it's great to be here.
First time on the show. We'll have to get you on more often. Let's talk about Anthropic's M&A strategy. Tell us about what the M&A strategy has been traditionally, and then how that's looking to change based on your reporting.
So for the 40-year-old startup, they haven't really done any M&As. So the closest things they ever done in the past was like this acqui-hire back in August, when they kind of hired the co-founders and most of the staff of this Human Loop, which is a really small startup that evaluated the LM models. And before, their CEOs really focused on like hiring researchers or like bringing on specific people with like expertise to add on to the teams. But recently, they have been putting together like a corporate development team, and they brought on like 2 former bankers and a venture capitalist to build out their like corporate development team. So Andrew Zloto, who was a former partner at SoftBank Vision Fund, is like heading up that team, and they are kind of like telling outside bankers that they are ready to do like acquisitions, and that's like kind of a break from their strategies in the past when they're like focusing on talents.
So they're gearing up to do more acquisitions. They've got all this talent. Did you get a sense at all from what they're looking to buy at all?
So Anthropic is really successful when it's like comes to selling AI to power all these like coding tools they're selling to developers. And that made up like a huge chunk of their revenue. So they could want to like do some deals that bring on like, other parts of that whole software development space for like do other tools that developers use other than coding. They can also do like acquisitions to focus on like specific industries like financial services, healthcare, like cybersecurity, that is like a more enterprise focus. But like they can also do that with like a partnership or like a deal. So I think they're still evaluating, what's like the best for them.
I wonder if you got a sense what is actually driving this desire to pursue M&A more. You talked about it a little bit at the start, but on the other side, we have OpenAI. They're doing a lot of deals. Is this a movement to stay competitive? Is it something that is more growth focused for them? Talk a little bit about what you think is driving this new focus.
So I felt like it's kind of have to address like, their rival OpenAI has been doing a lot of like deals using like the highly valued stocks to do equity deals. So they did 3 stock deals since like this June 2024 when they buy like Rockset, an analytics startups. They bought IO. They also have recently Static as to join for the application side, and they tried to buy Windsurf and also like have acquisition talks with the cursor maker and Sphere. So they have been kind of very motivated to using their like highly valued equity to do like deals, and that could from Anthropic, which closed like a big funding round this September to, so they could use some of those stocks to like do the same as well. And I guess like people are like AI labs and trying to find like new ways to monetize. So they could also look for like these kind of more AI application sides.
And certainly you have all of the talent that comes with all of these new companies too. I mean, if you're just trying to get your hands on researchers or expertise in a certain area, OpenAI has done deals like this. I can certainly see Anthropic doing deals like that. Thank you, Valida, for coming on the show. It was a really interesting story, and I'm excited to have you back on more as we find out more about the deals that these companies are doing. That is Valida Pau, our deals reporter here at The Information. Speaking of deals, late last year, OpenAI quietly tried to buy a video game company called Metal for the modest price of $500 million. Ultimately, that deal fell through, but it has inspired Metal, a 10-year-old company out of the Netherlands, to overhaul its ambitions entirely. The company has now spun out a new startup called General Intuition, which aims to use video game data to train AI models. They raised more than $130 million in seed funding today from Coastal Ventures and General Catalyst. And I want to bring on CEO Pim de Witte to talk more about where he hopes to take the business. Pim, welcome to TITV. It's great to have you.
Likewise, nice to meet you.
So let's get to the brass tacks here. What was Metal and what is General Intuition?
So view Metal as a way to capture and share memories while people are physically apart, and usually that's while playing video games. So you're playing a game, something interesting happens, and then as a result, you hit a button. It then syncs that video to your phone, and you can share it with your friends. And I think what we realized is by doing so, we've sort of built up the equivalent of the episodic memory of billions and billions of hours of humans observing simulation. And when you're playing video games, you're sort of transferring your perception to whatever embodiment you're playing the game as, right? Could be
this is basically like storing video game footage, essentially.
Yep.
Okay. So you play the game, something happens in the game, you want to save it, you save the footage, and then there was an aspect about this that I found interesting, which is that video game data is actually very helpful for training AI models.
Yeah,
why?
That's right. So think about the type of data that AI really needs, right? So in particular, let's talk about adverse events. So car crashes, things that have a really high cost in the real world. You want to get this data from simulation because you don't want to actually put people in danger, right? And so in addition, when you're playing video games, you're essentially transferring your own perception, right, into whatever device you're using to control your game character, and that game character can sort of be referred to as an embodiment, right? And so, as a result, it is this very, very good representation of spatial temporal reasoning, and over usually long horizons, which is. Games also have this very nice character of having a very clear reward signal, so you can understand whether you're progressing correctly or not correctly as you're doing things, which is very, very important for training to get that type of feedback, right?
Right.
And so it is a similarly to how programming, for instance, really accelerated LLMs, right? Games are the equivalent of verifiable domain for spatial temporal reasoning, and so as a result, it's incredibly important.
Yeah, well, it's funny. We play all these video games. We don't think they're as complicated when we play them, but there's certainly more thought behind them. The thing that I want to ask you about, and maybe this relates to your new startup that you've spun out now, General Intuition, is I feel like this gets a little bit meta and circular, right? Because, on one hand, we have AI now that helps us build or generate videos, and I imagine that video game developers can also use AI to generate new graphics and simulations and stuff like that. And then on the flip side, what you're saying here is all those graphics and simulations and games, they can actually be used to then train the models in the first place. So, am I thinking about this wrong? Isn't this kind of like a circular loop of training more AI on AI generated video?
It's certainly a loop, I think. And I think one thing that's really interesting, for instance, physics engines tend to get more realistic every year, right? This has already been happening even before AI.
Physics engines are meaning what?
Unreal Engine, Unity, the engines that people make to make these games today, even pre-AI, they were already getting more and more realistic every year. And so there's this sort of convergence happening where eventually, right, the environments that you run will be indistinguishable.
Right. A question for, and look, candidly, I didn't play very many video games in my life other than Super Smash Bros. Nintendo 64, which I still play at home. Is there like a sort of a cottage industry of sorts that is popping up where gamers can actually play the games, for pay essentially, and sell that footage or sell their experience to model makers that could then use it to then train their models?
Yeah, I do. So today, no. I do suspect that these types of things become viable for games that have very, very high levels of physical transfer. I think in a very extreme
Physical transfer meaning like the real real
of robotics, like or let's talk about maybe like a cooking simulator or something like this, right? Like I think these types of things, and and I think I do think these over the years these types of things do become viable if you really want to stretch the imagination, right? A lot of teleoperating companies already use game controllers to control their teleoperation stack. So what's to stop a gamer that is already verified to be very, very great at a specific thing to actually not just control games with their gaming hardware, but also actually maybe one day we'll be controlling robots or drones as games, right? In the physical world. Like I think this is kind of the start of something that goes much broader than games, and games and physical just end up coming closer and closer together.
Last question for you. I do have to ask, what happened to the OpenAI acquisition?
Yeah, so we're not going to comment specifically on these, and I think broadly look at it this way: we understood what this was, and our initial thought was that, hey, we're going to have to work with labs and build world models to build these simulations. We thought that was the value, and what we actually realized is that we have so much of this spatial temporal representations in the data that actually we can skip the world modeling stage to get to foundation models, which essentially allows us to leap really, really far ahead. And so we were interested in talking to some of the state-of-the-art labs early. I think for us, like we weren't interested in that much anymore because we can just do it ourselves. And so again, not commenting specifically on any specific company, but we that was the thought process of sort of talking to some of these companies earlier. And I think for us, the realization that we could leap and get this done ourselves was very, very interesting, and why we're on this journey now.
Right. Well, Pim, thank you for coming on. That is Pim de Witte, the CEO of General Intuition. And with that does it for today's show, folks. A reminder, we are on this stream Monday through Friday at 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern. I want to thank Amazon Web Services, who is our presenting sponsor for this production. And I want to thank you for tuning in. We really do appreciate your viewership. I am already excited for our next show tomorrow. Have a great rest of your Thursday. Bye-bye for now.